Yo, what is up, everyone? Welcome to Expanded Understanding, episode number 94. It looks like Aaron's got like a whole studio now. Check him out. He's gotten more professional.
A little bit,
Look at
actually. Just because it looks a little tricky, it actually is exactly the same as it was last episode, but it looks pretty fancy. Thanks for pointing it out, Zach. Yeah, it's still in process, but it's this nice little corner. Room. Nice. Good. I put it in this little corner. Put like baby in the corner. I put baby in the corner. How's it going, Zach?
That's good. It's going pretty well. How do you feel about your space with that in it?
With baby in the corner? Feels pretty good.
If that's what you want to call it.
Well, it's funny seeing it on screen because I mean that's behind me, and so I don't know. Nice, looks like a nice nook. I gotta get my books organized, and but the posters where they already were, I think that works out really well. Like this one, if I can get out of sight, right here. Like that's cool. So it's like a cast of a man coming out of bronze, like the spirit man or the inner man or the righteous man or whatever, new man, renewed man, shit growing out of there, and a bunch of other stuff.
Inside bronze guy.
Inside bronze guy. In baby's corner.
To call
him. Yeah. How do you? Okay. Speaking of which, so you've kind of had your space set up where you're at. Like, how are you about spaces as a person? Like, could you sit there with that exact same backdrop, the exact same space for like 5 years, and you don't even think about it? Like, is that the kind of way? Like, once it's set up, you're good.
I'm really like a function guy when it comes to that. So like if it's functional, then we're probably good. You know what I mean? So
form versus function, or was it
form
versus function? Yeah, form versus function, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in the sense that like I'm not really about the aesthetics anywhere near as much as the fucking.
What about the feng shui of the aesthetics?
Where it works. Well, I think feng shui is kind of part of function in a certain way. So, I always make things with like how it flows in mind, I mean, how it flows is very much so like how functional it is. I think they're one and the same, personally.
Yeah, and you're actually in a corner too, which I didn't really think about till now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, right. I mean, you got the window right there, that 90 degrees. So you got that in the shot too. Yeah, funny, interesting. Yeah. I mean, see, hey Jen, hey Kevin.
I guess if I had Jacob. Like completely my choice, I would have a space different, but really I don't even think about that. I just make the space that I'm in as functional as possible, and then I call it good, pretty much.
Yeah.
So
it's all organized or put the way you want and it feels good, then you move on. Lock that away and don't think about it anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I try not to. I was actually just talking to someone about this a little while ago, about the idea that like a lot of humans just like they like to have a problem to worry about. I'm not one of those people. I'm very much. I don't even think about problems. I think about solutions. The only reason I ever even engage with problems is because solutions are on the other side of them. If they weren't, I never would. So.
Yeah.
And that very much so goes into like how I handle my space. I don't want to spend a bunch of time thinking about how it's going to be. I want to get it a working way and then get to work.
Let it be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or let it function.
So, yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. I could be more feminine in that regard for sure. But I could also just like hire.
But it's not very high on the. Yeah.
An interior designer would probably fuck my space up though, honestly. They'd put all this stuff all over the place, and I would end up moving most of it away from where I normally hang out.
Yeah.
Just because I don't want the clutter at all.
Yeah.
So.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I understand why people do it, why people want their, like, they want to have cool looking shit all over the place. I have some. I have a little bit. There's, like, certain figurines and crystals and stuff that I've, like, had for a very long time or got them somewhere important to me or something like that.
Yeah.
And I have them around, but yeah. I don't know.
Meh.
More about functions.
Yeah. I went camping last night with my brother, just like impromptu in the middle of the week, and came back early this morning and went to work for a long work day.
Where'd you go camping?
Lake Cochise.
Lake Cochise?
Cachis, I think.
I
I
don't know
think
where
it's with
that is.
K. It's
What is that?
an hour and 15 minutes east-ish on 90. I'm not sure where it spins off, but that direction. I wasn't paying enough attention. I got it marked on my GPS. My brother was driving, so um,
That's that's pretty
but
good.
yeah. But here in Washington, it's like yeah, so it's not too far away, and they have the like regular campsites. There's like free campsites and one if they're available, and then there's a bunch of like plotted campsites with like an honor system to pay and a thing you fill out and whatever. Um, and so we got one of those, and because it didn't dawn on me until halfway through the night because we spent we ended up staying up to like 4 in the morning just talking, and out and there's no clouds in the sky, and it was a new moon, so there were a ton of stars, and so
Yeah.
there's just be able to doing that for like I don't know, went dark at what 9ish, doing that till like 4. Man, it's a long time to be under the same sky. You just see the stars shift and the constellation over the whole night just start to move along, and different stars come out and different. You start to see like I mean, one, there's way more stars than you realize. So all the basic constellations have tons of little stars all in and around, making up their own, anthropomorphized or whatever constellations or things that you're seeing or perceiving, or and different times it looks like there's a web interconnecting um, the stars, and which is interesting because like the part of it, I think from looking at the stars and seeing the cool ways they interconnect, I think it's the tracers. Like it's like dawned on me last night. So like you're looking at the star, or looking at the something like looking in the sun, and you look away and you have that green spot or at a light bulb or something. And with the stars, like when it's that dark out, that's all the light you're taking in. So I think it saturates those rods or cones or whatever. And then when you look away even a little bit, it leaves a tracer, and so it looks like it's making patterns depending on where you move your eye, and it leaves these kind of web patterns in between the stars. I thought that was a very interesting observation.
There's
But
a lot of fucking stars, man. When you go somewhere that's like really, really dark, like the Great Basin or something like that, it's fucking crazy how many motherfucking stars there are, really.
yeah,
Like, I've been taken aback by it so many different times in my life.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
the most stars I've ever seen was out at Forks, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Went out there 2009 ish, something like that. So it was not too long after the oh gosh, what was that huge craze? The vampire craze.
Yeah.
The books that were written out, and it was all based
What
in
the hell
Forks,
were those
Washington.
fucking called? I thought I would never forget about
No
what
doubt,
those were
man.
called.
Kind of glad I don't remember. I remember the sparkly vampire. That was the thing because he sparkled in the
Yeah,
sunlight.
sparkly vampires and then the werewolves. What the fuck was that thing called?
What was that called? And there were like 3 of them too. I think it was a huge deal.
Twilight.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, yeah. So we
God,
went to we
I
went
felt
to
so
Forks.
stupid there for a minute, man. Like, and that's like a stupid thing to feel stupid about, you know?
Yeah, that's oh we got
That's
yeah
double stupid.
3 people that popped in the chat like almost within the same time. Yeah, all the same answer. Yeah, everybody knew but us. So we went to Forks, and it was after. So it was a few years after that, but I was super what's tourist out or whatever, so except for tourists
Oh
on
yeah,
flight and stuff.
hella
And
touristy.
but we also did. I think we were there near 4th of July, and they had a demolition derby. Like people locally or in the area came around. They had a big concrete pit and incredibly loud.
Oh
Trucks and
yeah,
the cars, and like that was awesome, man. That was the first time I done that. It was really cool.
sweet.
But then we had there was the property we were staying with. So one of our friends' parents lived there and had lived there for a long time, and a lot of property. And so a bunch of us camped out, and some of us stayed. Some people stayed in the house. When we camped, we were right next to an abandoned airport, an airstrip, like a smaller one, but big enough that had a big airplane hangar and stuff on the side. And we ended up having this big airsoft battle with like 10 of us on teams. Actually, we haven't
Pretty sick.
videoed. We haven't videoed. It's on my other YouTube channel. It totally is. Made a clip of it. It was during the time of like Muammar Gaddafi and that whole dynamic, and so that was like spliced into just our interactions, like as we were in a war zone. And there's the guy with the cameras going around like he's a CNN reporter interviewing people live in the battle scene from Muammar Gaddafi and the infidels, and it was fun. Anyway, but at this airstrip, we ended up going laying out there at night because all the trees are cleared around it. In the middle of this forest area, all these trees are cleared around this airstrip for a pretty big area. So you lay down, you see almost the whole sky. And I've never seen so many stars in my life. I mean, I've seen before different times. You see the galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, wherever you're at, or it's dark enough or whatever. It was like that, but and so much more. Just insane. Like blow your mind. And this is just a place. So we're laying down an airfield out, in twilight where the sparkly vampires are.
Good old sparkly vampires, man. You can't have enough of them.
Yeah, apparently. I think they got saturated on it. What would people move on to from just sparkly vampires?
Yeah, I don't know. Where did all the sparkly vampire lovers go, I wonder?
Oh, they're turning into middle-aged moms, and that's their
It
books
could be.
from back in the day.
Could be the case.
Uh,
Turning into middle-aged moms.
it's either that or
Oh,
the other
man.
middle-aged, I don't know, women, not just moms or moms too, but what's the other one that was popular for a while on 50 Shades of Grey? Or that whole thing. It was like a,
I don't know that thing very well at
I
all. Like
don't, st-
I know like the really super basic pretense of it, but that's
yeah,
about it.
it's just like an S&M thriller dynamic romance novel thing. And it just really caught the public dynamic. So then there's people, oh, that's abusive and that's bad. And that's, I don't know, kind of this huge debate depending on what thing you were, they made a big thing out of it. But yeah, a lot of people are into that. Kevin said he quoted, "There's a lot of motherfucking stars." Is that from a movie? Because he quoted it.
I mean, I just said that or
Oh, is that what
something
you
along
said?
that
That is what you
line.
said. I'm like, that's something Zach would. Oh, Zach probably just said that. That is what you said. Yeah, you got to put on there
Yeah.
Zach Mortimer and tag him in it.
That's the primary reason why I even like really fuck with the alien concept. I mean, we don't have any real like solid proof about aliens existing, but if you just look at how many stars and galaxies there are, it seems kind of like statistically difficult to claim that there's not other shit going on. A
Yeah,
lot of it. Yeah.
I think
So
it's the cognitive leap for people, where I don't know, it just seems in talking to people, there's a leap of shifting a perception to aliens needing to, like on Enterprise or Star Trek or shows like that, where when you approach a planet or you whatever, you send out within a certain range of frequencies that they can read on their devices in 3D that translate into some kind of language that can be deciphered, and that's how you communicate with other species. That's an advanced way of communication. It is more than we have now. We have some kind of universal translator or interconnection, and like, but then the people that make cognitive leap thinking that telepathy, and then telepathy even outside of like time or space, where you can connect to someone on another planet or whatever that meant, once you have maybe established a phone number or a phone call or a relationship or some kind of connection, once it's there's entanglement, and you can actually connect or talk with people, that's like, or did that thought that that's a technology, that's a reality, that their consciousness can actually connect across the universe or just across space and time beyond needing physical material devices. And I just think, I mean, just thinking about why the people respond to that. Like some people will go down that pathway of thought, like thinking about it, processing it, thinking that might be real, or considering that. Other people, that's just too far out of the far of the realm of possibility. It feels like
sure.
it's just interesting how people respond to that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think people really do want to believe that there's something more, and I don't think that that's intrinsically problematic, but it is something that I think all tools we should be wary of both sides of them. And I think
Mhm.
very much so a lot of the problems that we deal with in our life are actually a byproduct of us wanting to be something more. And we very much so like tell ourselves we are that thing, but then we don't live up to it in a whole bunch of ways, and we kind of shit on ourselves
So
because of that.
how do you balance that between contentment and having a desire or a vision to be, or to be in a different circumstance, or to be in a different, whatever that means to you, progressing in some way different than where you're at now,
I think the
growing,
way that a
learning?
lot of people look at being content would mean that you don't have that desire to be somewhere else. I don't think that that means that you can't have a. I think well, especially with this word like contentment, if we really want to understand what we're supposed to do, we gotta fucking like split hairs all over the place, because it's the term has gotten very very muddied. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I agree.
So
Continue.
like
Parse
we
that
need
term.
to. I mean, being okay with who you are right now does not intrinsically mean that you don't see any value in changing, or that there wouldn't be some value in being some different way later. You know, just because you're perfect for what you're doing right now doesn't mean you're perfect for every way you're ever going to be in your life. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And so, like, I can be completely happy with who I am as a person, but still want to become even more. You know, it's
Yeah.
not
So do you have
the
to use different
contentment is
words?
isolated to whether or not you can be okay with what is right now. You know,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people they don't have really the ability to like
Would that
be
be
okay
okay?
with what's here right now and still have any motivation to do things. I think this comes as a byproduct of them actually being completely driven by their needs. They live in like survival. So
Mm,
they're always doing what they need to do. When we get more focused on doing what we want to do, then you could be content with who you are right now, but just want to get better.
mm,
Yeah. And then this like you're not running into the problems that sometimes occur in that sphere, I guess we'll call it.
mm.
So it's just all of this nuanced shit like that. Humans have a big problem with it because they basically like simplify it when it's really very nuanced, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And but it's weird too with that because the answer, just despite it being very nuanced, that's when something is very nuanced, it pays to find a very elegant way to really talk about it
Yeah,
and
no
to
doubt.
kind of look at it. Because if you're trying to split your entire life apart and analyze it with 80 fucking billion different little variables and everything, you have to collect all of those variables and data about all those variables. And there is some value to collecting some amount of data, but there's also a lot of value to recognizing when it's like, this is the data that I have and I need to go with this. This is who I am right now and I'm going with that. So, like,
Yeah.
I'm okay with the amount of data that I have right now or who I am right now or even maybe like the relationship that I'm in or the job that I have. Like, it's okay that I have this job that's not exactly what I want to do because it's basically helping me get to where I really do want to be in the long run.
Yeah.
And so I'm okay with what it is right now because I'm trying to grow to be somewhere else. And to grow to be there, I'm going to have to do a variety of things. And one of those things is I'm going to need to be like supporting myself in the process of it. And this is facilitating that, right?
Yeah.
So this sounds like a whole bunch of splitting it apart and shit, when really if we just live our life based off of what we want to do and we realize that we're always operating off of what we want to do, sometimes we just act like we need to do shit. When we want to do things, we engage with them in a very different fashion. We get the same kind of motivation, like that's what we're really looking for, is a motive force that allows us to do the next thing.
Mm.
But the way that our psychology deals with it is quite different in my experience, and I think it works a lot better. I think it's a lot easier to like stay happy with your life when you realize you're doing shit because you want to do it. Like, even when it comes to, you work a totally like normal run of the mill job, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
kind of job that most people bitch about. Well, like, realize like you want to eat and you want to keep living in the place where you do right now, more so than you want to starve or you want to fucking go find a different place to live right now, or whatever the case is.
Right.
So you can form the whole idea of go to work at this job that you don't really like around the idea that I want to stay alive. I want to keep what I do have in place, and then I'm going to work additional time or whatever, put in effort additional time in order to enhance my positioning. And I think a lot of people get caught up on the idea that they're not there right now, they're in this other place. And so they're very mad about the place that they're in. When if they really would just like recognize that they don't need to get to the other place, they want to get to the other place. And they're in the process of getting to the other place. And the more like the happier and the more positively focused they can stay in the process of going there, generally the faster it happens, but definitely the easier that it feels to go through that process and the more comfortable that it feels to go through that process. And really at the end of the day, we might want this kind of career or this kind of relationship or this kind of whatever. What we really want is to like feel good about our life in the moment. And one of the big
Yeah,
cores to
sure.
feeling good about your life in the moment is like, it sounds very simplified, but literally just feeling good about your life in the moment, which doesn't actually have to match any requirements of I've accomplished this, I've accomplished that. It's just literally just feeling good in the moment.
Yeah,
You know
there's
what I mean?
something, and that's where like I think MDA, MDMA, and MDA treatments that they've done clinically and things that and just I mean in general can, like, I think everybody deserves to feel good for no reason at all. If you want to put the word deserve on it, but I guess it would have been nice to have been taught that dynamic or what that means. Not just like deserves to feel good, but understanding you can make yourself feel good. just by your thoughts or your change of perception to settle into yourself, or like you're talking about, like even just being in the moment to choose to feel good and not just picking behavior. Well, I did this today and feel good. I mean, there's that too. I think that can really help to keep going when things are you're just, fucking up everywhere. I feel like you're taking steps backwards in certain areas, whatever. But being able to generate feeling. I think there's a really good TED talk from a neuroscientist who actually had a stroke in the right side of her brain, and she goes into her experience like after the fact, and after and then understanding, seeing the scans, understanding what happened to her, and she gets to explain. But she explains from her experience of this massive right brain dissociation, like she was going to dial the number of a colleague or something, or to get to the hospital, or because she was starting to understand what was going on, but she go in and out of lucidity into like dialing the number in like 1 3, and then go to push the next number, and then a whole universe would open up inside, and like almost like the psychedelic experience, right? But she's having this hemorrhage or whatever in her brain or
Yeah.
something. And anyway, but she talks about there's another video, she talks about the chemicals in the body that it takes, I think, 90 seconds for your chemical state to change. So when you focus on, the whole dynamic of focusing on a lemon, thinking about a lemon, the biting into a lemon, you can actually make yourself cringe as if you bit into a lemon just from thinking about it, and cause a neurological response to those things. So the thing that perpetuates when we're angry and then building that anger, or we're acting on that anger in a way that we prefer we wouldn't have done that or whatever, is that we're continually thinking about, or things in front of us, triggers, if you will. That's why taking space in an argument can be a beneficial thing or whatever, to get out of the thing that's continuing to focus and release a cascade of 90 seconds of chemical release. So if you can shift
Right.
your focus for 90 seconds into positive, whatever that is, as cheesy as it sounds, positive things, or shifting, getting out of the dynamic, changing your setting, that it'll totally change your chemical reaction inside the body.
Yeah. I think that's so huge too. Like, not even on like the 90-second scale, but on other scales too. Just that people don't give themselves enough credit is basically where I'm going with this. That if they made small changes that they could make, then they would be able to make other small changes and other small changes. And when you stacked a bunch of these together, they would have made big changes that they thought impossible. You
Yeah.
know? And we really I think we really, really fucking limit ourselves with just our belief of like what we're able to do when, I mean,
I think it's a
a
Tony
journey of a
Robbins thing,
thousand miles is made with a single step, but
right?
it's really just made with like thousands and thousands of single steps. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think Tony Robbins says most people overestimate what they can do in a year and massively underestimate what they can do in 3 years or something,
True.
that they try to
Yeah.
cram it all in to,
I would
but
say
they,
that's completely true.
yeah, something like that. I remember here, I don't know if he said it, somebody said it, and it made sense to me.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
think,
the idea being that in the short term, they have a tendency to exaggerate what they're going to be capable of, but in the long term, they're not really like giving enough credit to how much each little step ends up adding up,
yeah, and
pretty much.
projecting that way instead of projecting it to be accomplished this quickly. And then there's
Hmm.
disappointment or expectation or letdown, but knowing, be more, you can call it realistic, but in a good way. So you can set your motivation, your expectation to string out over 3 years instead of 1 year, and then
Yeah.
everything falls apart or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, really, I think when we're talking about the contentment, it really helps us to kind of like toil with the concept of unconditionality, which whether it be via like love or whatever really methodology you end up going about that, understanding that like doing things without some reason or condition is very, very beneficial actually to a person. It's really the only way to be like freely doing something. If it
Mm,
has to have some reason why you're doing it, or I love this person because that, I love my dog because this, something like that, that can be taken away very easily. All that little condition just needs to go away, and then it's not real, and so it's very
mm,
flimsy is kind of the point with that. I
mm.
think we should look to kind of shore up our defenses by taking away the conditions of, well, in this case I was referencing relationships, but really it's like all over the place with the conditions. The contentment is another thing of that, like being content is I'm okay right now regardless of the conditions. However, taking the conditions into account, I would like to change this, that, and the third. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no kidding.
Which I think is totally fine, personally. I
Yeah.
don't have any problem with that in my own life. I I understand that other people do, though. I think it's literally just because they I also was not really very trained to do things because I wanted to do them. I had like I thought I wasn't doing things because I needed to do them, but I was really just doing things because I anti needed to do them, right? Like I was
Yeah.
revolting against what you should do or what you were supposed to do. And I was kind of telling myself that I wasn't controlled because of that, but really you could control me. You just had to do it through reverse psychology. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
not good look in my opinion. I don't think that's a good look at all. I think that's just as controlled as the other side of it. You know what I mean?
It's a deeply, I mean, super ingrained just cultural mindset. It just takes a lot of, I don't know, culture, time, awareness to shift that. I was looking to, I was listening to, but it was breaking again down again that 95% of our subconscious or 95% of our decisions, choices, the direction of our life, where we're at right now, where we're headed, is all determined by our subconscious. So outside of our awareness, until you bring it to awareness and make the conscious, well, make the darkness light, as Jung says, or make the subconscious conscious. I mean, as much as you can, that whole shower dynamic, whatever. But the point that really is, we're driven by 95%. And there's just so many things that we're not aware of that are affecting the variables of our life that we think it just is, or we've even gotten used to expect this is how scenarios play out in my life, or this is just how it is. Not in a bad way. Like this is how shit is in my life. And I've learned to work that really well. That's a system that works for me now, or it does, it's not the greatest, but I've learned to work it. But then understanding that we can completely change those systems, but it takes work, if you will, intentionality, I guess, pursuit, if you want to change those things that literally aren't even
I
in
like
potentially in your
discipline.
awareness.
I think it
Yeah.
takes discipline is what it
Yeah.
really takes.
Disciplined pursuit. Because I mean, there's
It's
tactics
just
and
like
techniques, but
programming though, you know? I mean like
right.
if you were to like try and change a program by only changing its code some of the time,
Mm-hmm.
it would not go very well. Yeah. But when we
Mm-hmm.
change code with something, we're literally saying, okay, you're going to operate like this all the time now. And as a byproduct of that, it's very easy to make a change to a computer program. You just
Yeah.
simply tell it to do something different, and then it always does it different. If I was capable, or if it was even possible, really, to do it that simply to like enhance someone else's life, I mean, I'd just save the world myself.
Okay.
Because
Do
you just
you
literally go up to each person and be like, nope, do this and this and this and this and this, and then
have
like
you
then it's just
taken
fine.
have you taken all your programming symbol set knowledge into your meditations or and as an overlay?
I mean, it
So
basically
like,
never leaves my mind, so it's
yeah.
always there.
How would you, okay? How would you describe me? Because I can imagine, like as soon as you said that, I'm like, okay, I think I could relate. But how would you describe that? Like, how would you describe that affects even the way you meditate or the way you engage them? For example, like, well, whatever. Go ahead and elaborate. I can give examples if needed.
Um, well, okay, so most of the time that a person uses a program is actually the time that would basically be meditation in the way that I look at it, although this doesn't directly overlay for everyone in their operation. Um, when you're programming something, one of the most important steps is to run the thing and watch how it runs.
Hmm.
Right? And see what it's bugging on, see what it's getting caught up on. Is it creating any recursive loops? Is it creating any infinite loops? Is it have memory loss that's happening in certain places? Things like this.
Huh.
So you can draw all kinds of things from that. When I meditate, if we're doing like standard meditation, where we're like mindless meditation,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm basically kicking back and letting the program run and just observing what it does when I just let it run hands off. Because that basically tells me where there's bugs in the system. A lot of the time, this looks like, uh, oh, this girl keeps popping into my head, or this situation that happened at work keeps popping into my head, or whatever. And those are the things that my mind's fucking caught up on right now. If I look at those things, I can figure out why my mind is caught up on those things and look at it to a level beyond that specific thing, but rather abstract it to the functions of that thing. I think a very common way that this happens is, for instance, I'm having a bad day because my boss at work was an asshole. And the real reason why I have a big problem with that is because I know I'm an asshole to my wife after I have a bad day at work. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So
Yeah.
when I'm seeing that like my asshole boss keeps coming up, I'm looking at the function of like, Why am I so focused on someone being an asshole? Why does that so stand out to me? People are assholes all the time. People are
Yeah.
nice all the time. Sometimes you notice it, other times you don't. Why am I noticing it so much that it's continually popping up when I'm not purposely trying to think about anything? How is the asshole playing out in my life, right?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
me? Is it the other people around me? It's a little bit of both, probably. The real point, though, is that I can then look at that function because now it has come to my awareness. Simply because I sat back and let my subconscious flow into my awareness and was
Mm.
just observing what flowed into my awareness. Not with like a judgmental of like, that's right, that's wrong. Kind of more with a look of all of this is right. It's my job to figure out how it's right. You know what I mean?
Yes. All of it's
So the
real.
point is
All of
is
it.
that it's very much so like I'm just letting the program run and watching where it has, for lack of a better word, errors,
Mm.
right? But it's not really errors. It's more like any kind of operation that was not in line with what my desired operation was at that current point in time. And that desire can change all the time. Sometimes my mind runs very fast and I wish it would go slower. Other times my mind feels like it's running slow and I wish it would go faster. I don't actually have a
Yeah.
problem with my mind's rapidity or its sluggishness, but sometimes I do. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
I'm content with my mind. To be quite honest, like within my own operation with my mind, I can think back to a time where I was already feeling good about like my intellect and the operation of my mind, and like most of the stuff that I even think about at this point in time, I had never thought about at all at that point in time. So
Yeah.
I'm like another realm beyond it or whatever. I'm
Right.
totally content with that, but sometimes I'm not. And the
Yeah.
real contentment lies in my ability to be okay with my life when I'm content with the way that my mind is, and okay with my life when I'm not content with the way that my life is, or the way that my mind is. That's why I'm content with my life, because my life contains both times where I feel sluggish in my mind and times where I feel overactive in my mind, and every graduation in between. My ability to be okay with those graduations is really what defines the contentment. That I'm okay in the moment, whatever the moment is.
Okay,
So,
so semi-related question. I guess it's related. On the same topic, I guess, or somewhere. If there was a type of negative contrast that you would do without, what would it be? It's like,
negative contrast I would do without.
yeah, for example, like versus like there's natural grief in life. So people, I would never want to grieve again or feel sad again. It's like I would. I mean, sad. I have no problem with sad. You know that's not a problem. But there's certain like trauma, certain life grief. It could be make not be a part of my life anytime in the future. Like, is there a
I
level
can
of thing?
answer this question. I'm not sure it's actually like what you're completely asking.
Go ahead.
I wish people didn't perceive there as being an inverse to love. I don't believe that in function there actually is an inverse to it, actually. But I think people operate like that, and as a byproduct of that, they think that like being in love with their life or being in love with someone else is a choice that they have. And as a byproduct of that, they put energy towards managing it, determining who gets it, judging all kinds of situations, and oftentimes then subsequently condemning them as well. When I really wish they just went about it a totally different way, that like I'm
Do
in love
elaborate.
with everything, but there's like a graduating level of that, you know, where so
Mm.
I might be like very very deeply in love with this person and it's firing on all these different cylinders, and but really with everything, I maybe other things I'm just only firing on one cylinder. But really
But it's all
what
love.
I'm
It's all
saying
positive
here,
in that regard.
yeah, the positivity I
There is
would
no positive
kind of
negative.
take out of that.
Hmm.
That's why I don't think that there's really an inverse to love, is because I think love is actually like real actual coherence. And actual coherence is basically 0 point unity. It
Mm.
doesn't really have like an opposite. It's the collapse of opposites.
Mm.
And I think it really benefits us to take basically everything we think are opposites and analyze those so that we can see how we haven't even really actually started looking at the opposites yet. So, for instance, Well, people oftentimes, we could just look at like the idea of money, right? They think that like, so a poor person thinks about whether they have enough money or do not have enough money. Whereas a person who actually kind of transcends this mindset, which is to take it in this case to like a rich or wealthy mindset, they just think about how much money they're making all the time, and they make all of their decisions based off of that. And
Yeah.
so like the problem that I generally would refer to it as the employee mindset is trying to solve is not a problem that the employer mindset even spends any time thinking about. It's just not a dynamic that matters. It doesn't matter whether I have $5 right now or $5,000 if I can get a line of credit and I'll have $10,000 tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it never really spent any time asking that question.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that we do this with. I think we do it with literally everything, quite honestly. I think we're just trained to look at things like that. Like when we want to look at opposites, we look at up and down rather than the idea that up and down are directions. So the opposite of up and down would be a directionless state. Not down being the opposite of up. Down is maybe the inverse of up, but they're both a function of the x-axis. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Or you
Yeah,
could
yeah.
say z, whatever. It kind of depends on what your 3D space is defined as. But nevertheless, they're a function of the same axis. You know what I mean? So like, while the pieces on the chessboard play against each other, they're still both the pieces on the chessboard. And to have the opposite of that would be to have no pieces on the chessboard, not the black versus the white chess pieces. And that's why really the game of chess is about removing pieces from the chessboard. So, because really the inverse to having all your pieces or having black pieces is to not have pieces at all.
Yeah, and really thought about the directions. Yeah, that's good. It's interesting.
That's why I say, like, I think we do it with everything, because it's just the way that we perceive opposition. Opposition is
I like
actually
opposition.
inversion. It's not actually opposition. It's inversion.
But it might be opposition though.
Opposition.
Yeah.
Yeah, could be.
It really sounds
Opposition.
like that could be a word. I wonder if that's a nuanced word, but it's
I
close.
realize because it's interesting because like the way that when I hear that word, I split every fucking word apart, and then I'm looking for like root syllables and shit all the time. So when I see that word like opposition, if I'm thinking about it as opposition, then I would think of that as like the operative position. And in opposition, it doesn't really matter that the things are against each other. It's all relative situation, really.
Yeah.
So what it really does, what really matters about it and what it really does is it tells you what is the operative position, you know?
Yeah.
It's not really opposing one another, even though those are just the operative pose that they are taking, right? And one is posing that way and the other one's posing the inverse of it. And so we say that they are opposed to one another. But when the Lakers oppose the Bulls in the NBA Finals, it is as a byproduct of the two teams on the floor that the finals can even transpire, or that they have a game of basketball. Are they really actually against each other? One of them's trying to beat the other one at the game, but they're not really against each other. They're symbiotic partners. Without the Lakers playing against the Bulls, the Lakers nor the Bulls can ever win the championship.
Okay, so
Because
do you
there has
think
to be another team to play
sports can be enjoyed, using that example, can be enjoyed as viscerally as they are now without there being the believed in or cheered upon perceived dynamic of opposition?
The type of
Competition?
fanaticism that people engage with in there is really a byproduct of this need, the same need complex. I literally have never engaged with sports that way. I like teams. I generally like them because of a player or a way that they play the game. And I appreciate all of those games simply for the quality of the play.
Yeah.
It's never because like,
Yeah,
the fucking
totally.
Seahawks are the best, bro. And you're like, no, I like the
Right.
Chicago Bears. And I'm like, Bears are fucking stupid. Birds are where it's at. Ah! You know?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's not about that at all. I like, if I like football, then technically I like football teams, right? Like at some level. So I can't say that I hate the Bears or whatever.
Yeah.
But I just don't operate that way. People who get fanatic about anything are people who, in order to hold that belief, they need that belief to be right. So it has to prove itself against every other belief. Doesn't matter whether it's a sports team, a religion, a country.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all the same thing. And it
That's
really
funny.
actually comes from people operating from a space of need rather than
That's
want.
funny because then even in sports or religions or whatever, if you get to a place of okay, Jordan Peterson talks about teaching kids that the reason to play a game is not to win. When you're playing games with others, the goal is to play again. Like play in such a way is that people want to play with you again in a
Sure.
game setting. So you're competing, you're playing your roles in a way that's benefiting the whole. So they're all whatever that means, and every sport's different. But
Yeah.
different sports and religions, I guess, too, where they maybe like have their favorite team, but their reasonings may be for all the dynamics of enjoying the sport, the way they play together, the way the players play, the way they get it instead of just like blatant, well, I'm a Republican or I'm a Seahawk and I'm they actually have reasonings for why this is their favorite, whether it's their city's team or not. They have reasonings and they appreciate other people having their own favorites for their own reasons and having discussions and like we'll see how it plays out. And that's part of what's nice about it. It's not just like endless discussions about theories or philosophies or who's best. It's like you can discuss and guess and whatever, and then you see how it plays out. Then you can discuss some more because there's always events that are occurring. But I guess that keeps it fun, always
It's funny
engaging.
too, especially in the NFL, because like you hate other teams' fans, but if the other team didn't have fans, then the other team wouldn't exist because marketing dollars, and then you would have no game to win. You know what I
Right.
mean?
I
So
think some people know that too, and they just love all of it. They love that that's a system they're in. They can get into it and hate other fans. Just like they love this, like playing it, like for fun. Not that they genuinely hate them, but to get into it
yeah.
and hate them for the sake of the competition at the time, and like I
Well, I
don't know,
mean,
it's
it's all
fun,
really, it's a fucking game, and it's
right?
totally
Yeah,
fine to play the role of the supporter
yeah,
inside of the game. You know what I mean? But if
yeah,
you're
yeah.
like, no,
Isn't it interesting? It's like taking on the
the
role.
Seahawks are the best. The other person's like, no, the Bears are the best, and you're like, no, the Seahawks are the best. And if you say that again, I'm gonna beat your fucking brains in.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
wait, you took it too far. We're not playing the
Yeah. It's
game
a little much.
anymore.
Yeah.
The
No
game
doubt.
is about I support one team, you support the other
Yeah. The
team.
game was
We
not
rib
like
each
let's
other
see
or whatever.
until I realized this is a massive ego over identification for you, and we have a
Right.
major problem with 3D
Yeah.
in front of us now.
Yeah. That's not helpful or healthy, really, for
Yeah. It doesn't help.
anyone's claim. At the end of the day, fighting the Chicago Bears fan doesn't ever make the Seahawks win.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect the game in the slightest.
But it
So,
could solve your childhood traumas to take it out on another fan. Maybe that is the way you
probably
solve
not.
your problems.
That's probably just you acting them out childishly.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right.
Probably.
I wouldn't
And
solve
probably
it.
not
Oh,
going to
okay.
solve them at all.
Yeah.
Reinforce them, maybe. Reinforce terrible decision making of, like,
Yeah.
physically accosting someone because they don't like the same sports team as you, which
Yeah.
means you have about 1,000 other problems in your life that are
It,
abstracted from those same
so
ones.
so I was in a past relationship. I was with someone who very proper, very. I mean, um, you'd never expect the behavior I'm about to describe from this person in a public setting. We were walking through a football stadium and we were holding hands and these two girls behind us, like teenage girls, I mean 14, just ghetto though, just talking shit about people and just loud and whatever. And they're like, oh, look at them holding hands, you guys need to get a room. I'm like being all whatever. They're
Because you're
teenage.
holding hands?
Yeah, because they're holding hands, like, whatever, right? It's just kind of, it's not a big deal, just keep walking, ignore it. I kind of laugh. And she throws my hand down, turns around, gets in this girl's face and just starts talking shit, like about to fight her. I'm like, whoa, 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 chill. It's fine. Like, whoa. And it was
Yeah.
just in those situations, like, you call them triggers, but it's like, man, you never expect from certain people. It's like, Jesus, what happened to you when you were 14 or something? I mean, geez, what went on there?
Yeah. I don't know. There's always a reason for it to happen, but I think it's one of the funniest things ever when someone, like, so someone gets out of line, and so
Mhm.
someone's answer to that is to get out of line. Like,
Yeah.
this
So
is such a two wrongs don't make a right kind of situation here. Yeah.
negative feedback loop. I mean, that's what you experience for 7 years. You absorb that shit in, just imprints right onto your brain and how to
Having
handle.
said that, though, if you're like, minding your own business and someone decides to like run their mouth about your life and your heart tells you to bust them in the fucking head, by all means, bust them in the fucking head. It's your life.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's got a song for that. It's called Remedy. Some people
Huh.
talk.
It's interesting. I wanted the Jordan Peterson thing that you were talking about, the idea that like playing games is to get them to play with you again.
Mhm.
And he does say it with like this, is not to play them to win, but I think that's even this mentality could be even more inclusive. They realize like if you want to play to win, you need to play around other people who also play to win, because they want to play with other people that play to win, and they want to play against people that are worth winning against.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
don't want to play with people who
I
don't give a fuck about it.
think he'd agree the way he lays that out. I mean, he lays that out a
I'm
lot
sure
in
he
the
would.
context. But yeah, that's a good way to elaborate on it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
And,
I
and
mean,
everybody on your team is playing for the same thing. Because it sucks when like you're on a team with someone where there's whatever the reason is. So it's let's say I've been in church leagues or things where you have a mix of people. People want to play, but there's also some people maybe they're on a team because you're including people who want to play. Maybe they're not the greatest asset to the team if you're trying to play in this league and win or whatever, but they want to play and there's inclusive. And so when you have people on the team that don't value the inclusiveness of someone playing because they really care more about winning than having people play, or I guess in little
right.
leagues with kids, right, where they're allowed every kid on the team has to play X amount of minutes, no matter how good they are at certain ages. And um, so yeah, so what you're saying just
Except
kind
for,
of
of
solve,
course, the coach's kid. The rules don't apply to him
yeah, that
at all.
um, but if you're and it's hard at age groups, young ages, but as adults, that's why they have leagues too, competitive leagues or for fun leagues, and there's kind of a totally different vibe. So the fun leagues like basketball pickup leagues, that you can tell there's maybe not necessarily great players on certain teams or on your team, but you're there to have fun, to get some exercise and whatever. So the whole energy is different. Yeah, you're there to win. You're playing basketball. You're trying to win the game, but you're not mad at your weaker links because that's not the real reason you're playing. So you get the most points or have the best athletically, competitive team if you're playing on a rec league with that in that specific category.
I think it's. I mean, I guess there's a right time and a right place for
Yeah.
everything, and if you don't fit in somewhere, you're probably perfect somewhere else. But if you really got to fit in that place, and you don't, you're probably going to need to do something to change. Like, and really, all that change is predominantly discipline. If there's, I think, anything worthwhile to hammer home from this episode is you can change anything that you want to in your life if you are disciplined enough to enact that change in your life. Yeah. People sell themselves massively short, and part of the way that they do that is by fucking not being disciplined enough to continue to carry something out. Whether it's 90 seconds to generate some kind of chemical change, 21 days in order to, make it feel like a new habit, or the 90 days and making it really feel like a way of life. Like, if you do something like that's actually like an actual thing and you do it every single time it comes up 90 days in a row, you'll have a fucking hard time not doing that.
Mm.
So this works for everybody. It's not a maybe. People need to actually commit to themselves and commit to actually being a solution for anything that they're not content with in their life or they dislike in their life. Maybe they just want to adjust it because they think it would be better the other way. You're the change, man. You are the agent of change in your life.
You
So,
are the change you want to see in the world.
with that, stay disciplined. Supposed to be getting a new internet connection tomorrow, so I might be having some changes on the
Yay.
stream here in the near future. It's supposed to be here tomorrow. Let's hope everything keeps going. So I'm still just so surprised that there's gonna be a 1 gig line installed here that I honestly kind of don't even believe it. I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
still expect them to come over here and be like, "Oh, weird. I don't know why the tests were showing you could have this. We can't even run
yeah.
service here or
Right.
something." And I'm gonna be like, "Okay, well that's fucking weird, but
Yeah,
it is what it is." But that probably won't happen. I mean, they probably actually know what they're doing. So, nevertheless,
yeah.
pretty fucking weird. But
Uh,
then we can, yeah, other things can transpire on the stream.
like games,
And,
high FPS games on the stream.
sure, I
We
mean,
could.
really, just about anything.
We could do a whole
But
episode on teach us how to play like Rocket League. You just play it on screen and then talk to us about it. I'd have plenty. I'd certainly enjoy watching that and playing, ask questions and shit. That's a cool dynamic.
sure, yeah, it's kind of funny. I actually just like randomly met a guy in a different game the other day, and I asked him like what other games he played, and he's like, "Oh, I play Rocket League some," and I'm like, "Oh, cool, like." Yeah, that game's like two completely different games depending on like what rank you are. Speaking of that, like what rank are you? He's like, "Oh, I'm Grand Champ," and I was like, "What the fuck? Like, how do you even do that?" You know, like Grand Champ is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pro. Like
Was that
it's
what
like
level you got?
videos I showed you. What's that?
What level are you at?
I mean, I'm not even ranked right now. I haven't played the
Oh, I
game
thought,
since the ladder
oh,
reset, but
oh, since the ladder
I've
reset.
never been up to even champion. So I've never taken it very serious.
Yeah, yeah. Cool,
So
man. Yeah, it's still be fun to play. That's a really really awesome game. There's a lot there.
yeah, I played it very early when it came out, but other than that, like
You said it was like 5 years
nothing
old. Like, or
special.
it's been out a while, right?
I think it's actually like 7 or 8.
Oh,
It's
jeez.
fucking
Yeah,
pretty old.
we're in
So,
StarCraft 2.
anyways,
Played it.
speaking of discipline, make sure to stay disciplined and come back by our stream another time. If it's your first time here, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, check out the social channels below, and yeah, unless there's anything else you need to add or want to add, we'll be
Yep.
back on Friday.
Yep. Sounds good, guys. Love you all very much. We'll see you next time.
Have a good night, everybody.